quick. So apparently my daughter's looking at getting a Saint Bernard. She goes, I want
Yeah.
this one. I'm like, F that. A soul for a soul. You must give up Daisy. And I put the picture of Red Skull on the mountain.
Oh.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Heroes Peak podcast. This is the 28th of January, February, March, April. April, apparently. I'm Chris, your host, and we're here to talk about whatever the heck we feel like today. With me to talk about whatever is Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, hanging in there. It's finally getting warm. I'm appreciating can go out for a walk and not freeze my butt off. So that's good.
Oh, yeah, we finally finally broke 50 here.
It's getting there. Pretty
getting
soon
there.
we'll be complaining about the humidity again.
That's life. That's what we like to do, complain. And with us always is James. How you doing, James?
Hey, Chris. I feel like, Jesus, Lord and Savior, 40 days in the desert here, being quarantined, waiting for that Easter.
Has Satan come in and offered you powers in exchange for your loyalty?
No, but I've had different neighbors walk by without a mask or gloves and PPE on my property.
Like the vice president.
Yeah,
Oh,
like the vice president. Except for these guys are not telling people what they need to do, and they're just ignoring it.
Speaking of, I have a gallon of cherry flavored Lysol if anybody's interested.
Oh, the good stuff. The good stuff.
Yeah,
Just go back to the Tide Pops.
yeah.
That's right. Those are easy one shots. Bam! It's like a pill every day.
Yeah,
Mhm.
clears everything. Clears your soul too.
Clears your sinuses.
The president
soul.
was talking about putting UV light on the inside, and the first thing I thought of was those Blade bullets. Remember those bullets from Blade, or was
Yeah.
it
Me too.
the Kate
Yeah.
Beckinsale one?
No, it was also in Blade. They had it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, we're gonna shoot people with UV bullets now. That'll clear it up.
I have these little lights that go in your water fountain that like float. Can I just swallow those if I turn them on?
Mini LEDs. Yeah, there you go.
Does that work? I don't know. Does it matter what kind of light?
I don't know. All of a sudden, I feel like I want to be bloodshot with those nanites all over my body, right?
Oh, that's right. He could do it, and they'd just heal him up.
There you go.
Movie ahead of its time. All right. So, we're just going to do a couple of small topics today. Some fun conversation here. We're going to start out with talking about the first couple of episodes of The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. Now, we talked about it during our last episode in depth. You guys got to see the first two episodes. They finally come out up to 4, right? Episode 4, or did 5? Nope.
Yeah, 3 and 4 came out over the weekend.
Okay. And I finally got to go and sit down, and man, was that good so far? It's pretty crazy. Some flashbacks. I like how the documentary moves around, but not like where it's going and why it's relating each time period to each other.
Yeah, I like how they so far seems like every episode's been focused on a person and a time period. And then at the end of each episode they cut to that last season, right? To
Correct.
give you like a taste. And I
Mhm.
kind of like that. It's like a cut, like an end credit scene, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. I mean, I agree with you guys. I love. I mentioned it last week. I love the editing format that they're doing by doing the time jump. It seems like something from our type of genre of like sci-fi or anime, where you can
Right.
do something like that. I've never seen it done in a serious, nonfiction documentary before. The other technique that I like that he does is even more simple and more technical. It's like how when he interviews, for example, and I think in episode 3, when Dennis Rodman was telling he wanted to go to Vegas and take some time off, and then they say, "Hey, Michael, take a look at this," and they give Michael the iPad, and then they play back the same conversation that Phil Jackson or Dennis was having, and you see
Yeah.
Michael watching just like we were watching it 5 seconds ago, and his reaction. I'm like, that's like a meta camera
Yeah, it
thing. I don't know
is.
what to call it. I'm
Yeah.
not a filmmaker, but what he just did right there was he just opened up another layer within the film we're watching, the documentary we're watching, where you're seeing another participant and actor watching another piece of footage that we just seen and seeing his reaction as part of the upper layer documentary. So this director, I really am impressed with how he's putting this documentary together so far.
Well, there's a whole thing on YouTube of reaction videos. Kids watch reactions to opening toys. I've watched reactions to trailers, like movie trailers. I'm like,
Yeah,
how are
exactly. Yeah.
people? You know, some people are kind of professional reactors. I've noticed that they always put out reaction videos, and they act a little bigger maybe than necessary.
Uh huh.
But still, it's kind of interesting. It's just sort of a uh, reality TV sort of thing to want to see someone else's reaction, because you're sitting there, I'm sitting there by myself in bed at night, and just okay, I'm reacting, I'm laughing, or I'm surprised, and then I get to see what Michael Jackson. Oh my god, I've done this all day, guys. I'm sorry.
Different last
Uh,
dance. Different last
Different last
dance.
dance. Michael Jordan's reaction to Isaiah Thomas or to Dennis Rodman or whatever, and it's actually pretty cool to see.
It
Yeah.
is. I mean, I like that the technique that this guy is using to give us this. I mean, at first in my mind, I was like, "There's no way there's 10 hours worth of footage that we've
Hmm.
never seen before. Like, what is going on here?" And then after last week, you watch episode 1 and 2, and then the continuation of 3 and 4 this weekend. You see, okay, so he's not giving you 10 hours total of unprecedented footage. He's wrapping around whatever footage. They probably have like 2 hours worth of actual footage from that final
Hmm.
season, and he's marrying that with a larger overall story. Which is, again, I'm giving credit to this guy. Maybe someone else gave him the idea and he's running with it, but
Well, there,
I
I
like
agree.
that
There's
he's marrying
Mhm.
a 10-part story with 2 hours worth of footage by using these techniques that he's using and telling us the story.
Yeah, there's definitely some genius stuff going on here, because you'll watch new stuff, you'll watch a little bit of story, some clips from the news, uh, and then a new clip, and then maybe you'll see uh, a minute and a half of Michael Jordan dunks set to music, and you kind of get that feeling like you're like, oh, I love this one. This was a great game, or this, oh, this one's good, and so your excitement level keeps high, because it's never, you're not sitting there watching an interview with Dennis Rodman for 2 hours. Actually, did you guys see there was a Twitter? There was a interview with the guy who interviewed Rodman. Did you see that?
No.
No.
And it was only like a 3 second clip, 3 second clip. It
Hmm.
was only like a 3 minute clip, but basically he said he had carved out like 10 hours worth of questions for Dennis Rodman,
Oh
and that
wow.
Dennis Rodman shows up like 2 hours late, has a request for like a turkey sandwich, a turkey sub from Subway, and a chamomile tea. And after they get that to him, Rodman's like, "You got 10 minutes,"
Oh.
and so the guy's like, "What do I ask?" And Rodman sat there. He said he sat there for like 2 hours and talked to him.
Oh, that's
But
nice. At least, yeah.
it was just like this roller coaster of Rodman. And I have to say, after episode 3, I feel so different about Dennis Rodman than I have in years.
Same. Yeah. Same
I
here.
did. Chris, did you ever see the 30 for 30 short on Dennis?
I have not. No.
Okay. I want at least 2/3 of that footage that they showed. I knew
Hmm.
about from watching the 30 for 30. I knew about the failed attempted suicide. I knew about obviously
Hmm.
his family upbringings and stuff. The items that I didn't know about obviously was the Vegas one because that that was something different. And the and I've read this before in a book by Phil Jackson, but I've never seen Dennis actually talk about it. When he's telling you his breakdown on how he gets a rebound or how he studied rebounding, he watches the angles and the spins. Like this was the first time I've seen him actually talk about it on camera because I knew I read from somewhere. I think the Phil Jackson's last book when he was after he had retired from the Lakers as a coach, and he was talking about the different players he had coached out the years and Scotty, and he talked about this somehow. Robin used to watch tape, but not watch tape like everyone else was watching tape for like the other team's opposing offensive plays, or he was watching how everybody was shooting. How each player in the other team, he'd watch them throughout the season, where they like to get the ball and when they shoot it, and depending on where they're shooting at what angle, where the rebound's gonna go. And I'm sitting there like, how is that possible? But now, yesterday, this weekend, watching him talk about it on tape, and he's like, the spin, the angle, it's going here, it's going there. I'm like, this dude was I don't want to say a basketball savant, but we don't give him enough like respect of intelligence.
That's genius level stuff. You see that in a TV show where the math geek has to shoot a basketball, and so he does the math in his head of, oh, it's just a whatever it is, because I don't do math. But it's like a joke in TV that the math whiz can figure out the math of hitting a baseball or shooting a basketball, and as long as you can do it right. And it felt kind of like that meme where the lady's looking weird, but she's got all the math symbols all over her face.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for a guy who wasn't like the tallest guy on the court and average like 7 consecutive seasons of like 20, close to 20 rebound, 15 to 20 rebounds a season. Like it wasn't athleticism. It was actually some intellect in what he was doing, how he was picking his spots for the rebound. It's just incredible. And then the other thing, obviously, is his endurance to go on a Benger and still come out and like perform and run and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. This is stuff that they did. I did see in a 30 for 30. I knew that he had a otherworldly type of stamina where he can go away and drink at a party the night before. He'd be at a club to 3 a.m. and then 9 a.m. he's already on the court for practice. It's like legendary stuff you hear until too many people are corroborating the story. You realize, okay, this is not just legend. This is actually, truth. There's some truth to this.
The video of him showing up to practice in his pajama pants and his slippers, and I'm like, oh, that's COVID. That's everybody coming back the first Monday
quarantine.
Quarantine.
This dude was in the gym with the kamikaze cup by the rack pull down. Oh, Dennis.
My other big surprise was Phil Jackson. He's coming off as a really, really not just smart, but like a leader who understands that a guy like Dennis Rodman, if you just give him that weekend, if you give him that 48 hours, he'll come back and he'll give you everything else. Most people would be like, no, you can't. That's against rules or you're whatever. And he just seems like the guy who understands how to lead people on individual levels.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something so far I've seen from Phil throughout this series is he comes by far as a very shrewd strategist and a tactician. Like every syllable and word that that you can parse from him from this documentary seems measured and calculated somewhat. And I don't know if that's just his human nature or he knows when the camera's on what to say, but you could tell like there's no wasted effort in what he's telling you on camera. If you go back and rewatch every time that he's on camera, even when they're asking a question about Jerry Krause, you can see that he's already in his mind. He knows how much he wants to tell you and how to phrase it correctly.
Well, he's got a nice calm demeanor overall. So I think that's part of it. It's just it's not his demeanor to quick respond and get fired up over something.
True.
So, and Scottie Pippen got screwed.
Well, yeah, we knew he got screwed.
Yeah.
Definitely got screwed. But so what was your take on the Pistons portion? Because that made a lot of there was a lot of play today on the sports circles, the ESPNs and Undisputeds. Isaiah was doing the circuit, not really apologizing, but defending what happened, saying, "Yeah, if he could take it back, he would." But at the time, he did what was the normal thing to do. Like when the Celtics were beating them, they walked off when they beat the Celtics walked off the court, didn't shake their hand, so they thought they were just passing the torch. If he could take it back, maybe, but he didn't realize 30 years from now people would still be talking about that. And then Bill Laimbeer was unapologetic about it. He goes, "No, they were whining and what? So what? They won. We walked off. Big deal."
I think Michael Jordan holds a great grudge, and it drives him. Every little grudge drives him more, but I think he's held on to this one a bit too long.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think it was just Michael. I think some of the other team members were all agreeing that it was poor sportsmanship.
Well, the team itself, it was the tough guy team. They were the beat you up team, and for you to finally beat the big guy and the big guy not to basically capitulate and say, "Oh, all right, you did it. You came up and you punched me in the face and you beat me." It's kind of a sulking off. Whether or not the Lakers did that to him, oh well. You know, you decide how you react. You don't react because everybody else does it. That's
true.
kind of that's poor sportsmanship. But if everybody really hated, you can't hate Isaiah Thomas for it and not put some of that like hate Dennis Rodman for it, right?
Yeah.
Why is it just Isaiah Thomas? What about the rest of that team? But there seems to be something else with Isaiah Thomas and everybody else. So
Yeah. Story for another time.
it probably is. But yeah, it's great. It's a great documentary, and actually, I'm going to talk about it now because it kind of got me in the documentary mood. And over on Disney Plus, there's a documentary called "The Imagineering Story." And for those who don't know, Imagineers are the engineers of Walt Disney World for their live attractions. So kind of like ILM is to George Lucas, the Imagineers are to Walt Disney. And
Right.
so it's 5 episodes into 6 episodes, so it's like 6 hours long, which is quite a good chunk, and it's really interesting, fascinating history. It's not from an outside perspective, so it's not like you're gonna get dirt. It's not one of those documentaries, but still, it's personally as a big Disney fan, but also like if I could magically choose a job, it would be Imagineer. Of course, have to be a hell of a lot more talented to be that, but it it really it's a good documentary.
What's it
If you
available
like
on, Chris?
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
It's just Disney
Of
Plus.
course.
It's
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken by the name, that it looks like the director is is a relation to one of the old Disney animators. Um, so I'm gonna have to check it out. It's voiceover by Angela Bassett,
Oh, okay.
so it's really high quality. Lots of great old footage, good information about what went on. It's basically if you're interested in the Disney parks and you want to know all of the stuff about them and how they got to where they are, history of everything from Disney Tokyo, Disney Hong Kong. Did you know they had to build an entire island? The Hong Kong government built an island for Disney to put their Disneyland on in Hong Kong.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
By the
like
way, I see it's being rated 9.1 out of 10 on IMDb and 100% Rotten Tomatoes.
So there you go. There you go. I mean, it's hard to go wrong. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just gonna say, like when Disney says they want to open a theme park somewhere in the world, it's like a U.S. sports team saying we're thinking about moving to another city. Who's gonna build us a stadium? You know?
Well, I mean, interesting
Or
about
Amazon.
the foreign country stuff
Hmm.
is like the history of Disney in Tokyo, which was their first expansion. Disneyland, Disney World, and then Tokyo, is that apparently following World War II, during the U.S. occupation, Disney movies were one of the few media kind of allowed, and it kind of
Mm.
created this love for Disney because it was one of the things that you could watch as entertainment.
Right.
Little propaganda, but that's the U.S. for you. But it kind of created oh, hey, this is a property known and loved. But when you go over to China and you go to France, yeah, France isn't big on capitalism, and China isn't big on the way. Hong Kong's a little bit different, but um, it's not like those are love affairs with U.S. capitalism. So there was some iffy pushback, and China wants to run the show. So amazingly, uh, from what it said, Disney World Tokyo was not built by Disney. It was built by a company from Japan. Same with Tokyo, or same with Hong Kong. It's not. It's kind of co-owned,
Mm.
right? So it's interesting, but
It's the only location where that's allowed by Walt Disney Corp.
pretty much if they get a bunch of money, it's worth their money to do it. But because of those governments, they won't allow Disney will just come in and build. Someone has to basically license Disney to build a park in Disney's name there.
Yeah, the ministry has to be there because you can't imagine you let some Westerner just come in and build whatever they want, right? Then you've got issues where you can't control the narrative, whatever they're pushing out. So
Well, it was directly. You guys would remember, the UK had just basically released Hong Kong from
yeah.
occupation.
Yep.
Hmm.
Is occupation the right word there? It
Yes.
probably is.
I
Yeah.
yeah.
And so Disney went, "Oh, hey, look, we can." That's a market, and no, but it's interesting, like the different personalities involved, and the different
Hmm.
histories involved. Apparently, Disney World. I didn't know Disney World had applied to be its own municipality,
Wow.
so they could
Vatican City.
avoid some red tape from the government, from the Florida government, because otherwise they'd have to get certain building permits and stuff like that they didn't want
Yeah, pesky old building permits.
to. Right. All right. So I suggest that if you have Disney Plus, or if you're thinking about Disney Plus, I think it's a good investment. It's basically all my daughter watches.
Yeah, my kids are watching it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've watched Little Mermaid and Peter Pan, I think.
You
But
know what
that's
I was able to watch recently? Frozen 1 and
mhm.
2.
Oh yeah. Why don't you tell us about your experience watching Frozen
What a
1 and 2?
segue. Um, on
I still
Disney.
haven't seen either of them, by the way.
Oh,
You know what?
Well, you
Let
can
me
skip
not say
one.
that. I like
Honestly,
I've
skip
you
seen
could
one.
probably skip the first one.
yeah. Okay, well I've seen like enough clips of one to put it together and go, I understand what the plot is. So
Yeah, you heard that Let It Go song, so that's all you need to know about the
yeah,
first movie.
right.
Um, so I did it back to back. My daughter coerced me into watching it so she can watch The Last Dance. We made a deal. She kept to it. I kept to it. Um,
Uh-huh.
I don't want to really just review them as separate movies. It's gonna the franchise to me. Overall I think it's an enjoyable franchise. It's a new story, new Disney princess. I don't think much of the first movie um, was really done well, other than like the one or two songs here and there. Felt really empty. However, the second movie, I didn't get a chance to do any research to see who the writers were between the two movies and whatnot. But the second movie was a much better movie. Much better story. Music a little bit better, probably a lot better, I should say. Where I felt like, wow, night and day. It's like the freak was I watching in that first movie. Um, I mean, honestly, that first movie felt like on the levels of that Trolls movie I saw the weekend before that. Like
Uh,
empty sugar calories, nothing of substance. Oh, there's another song. Here she goes. Use her powers. Come on, we're gonna go Dark Phoenix mode. Um, but the second movie was felt like you could feel the tension, you could feel the gravitas. There was there was some seriousness in it, and it was still a kid friendly movie. But I like the story. I like how they wrote that one. Without spoil, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not really spoiling anything. But
it's a couple of months, couple
yeah,
of months.
like her past tying into to her who she is and her people was much better. I like that. Better story. So the first movie, if I had to grade it, I'd probably give it a D, and the second movie, I'd give it
Oh
a
wow, that
solid
low,
B.
huh?
Yeah, right, Eric. Frozen one. Ooh, Eric said Frozen one was like a D minus.
No. Oh wow.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think it's a lot better. But I think for what
and Eric gave
Frozen
Frozen
one,
two A minus.
what Frozen, they both are the same writers.
Same writers?
Jennifer Lee.
No.
Yes, Jennifer Lee. Now the first one is based on loosely the Snow Queen, which is a Hans
Yeah,
Christian Andersen, whereas
that's right.
Frozen 2 is a complete fresh movie, using the characters from that story,
Oh,
but
well, there you go. Makes more
making its
sense
own
But
now.
thing.
is,
Did not
isn't
know that.
isn't that the way it usually works? So like you've got this property, and you take some, you can stretch it a bit, but you kind of got to stay within. But then the next one comes around, and you're saying, okay, we have this world, we can do whatever we want, right?
Right. Well, what
So
Frozen 1 did was, okay, it's almost that generic um classic fairy tale story. So it's not like it's jumping out at you as something fascinating. The music and the acting and whatever is supposed to kind of take care of that. What made that different was they switched up the prince saved by the prince storyline, and they made it more of a, hey, these sisters are the love that they need. So the whole,
Which I enjoyed. Yes,
right.
that was a.
So that
You know what this was? This reminded me of when you were defending the Last Jedi to me many moons ago, and how you're trying to tell me, well, they decided to a fresh idea and this that, and the third, and I'm listening to you like, no, 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 no. This is exactly what they did with this one. What you were trying to tell me about the Last Jedi and how it pivoted from the original characters and original story to something fresh. This is what I felt Frozen 2 did against the first movie. It took
so
the
the problem,
characters that are
yeah.
already established in the first movie and gave you a fresh new story and idea by also tilting everything on its head. Where you're right, the females were the ones that were the saviors, and not necessarily the male princes, singular or plural. It's exactly
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what Frozen 2, because I agree it's a better movie, even though the music, I think the music in one is better, but that's a different question. But I think what it did as a movie, exploring a little bit of the town's past, and it didn't go all the way. I think the ending could have been, they could have just gone for it at the end. I think they pulled back a little bit, but it really was fun, and they really kind of explored the characters. And I think that's what you felt compared to one. One is about the area and you generic characterization for these the characters, whereas two, you kind of get to explore personalities and family interactions a bit more. That's what I
Well,
would
it
say.
sounds like if you want to compare it to the last Star Wars trilogy, so the thing with that, I know where you were coming from when you were talking about the Last Jedi, Chris, about how they were trying to go in a different direction, blah blah blah. The problem was they should have did that with 7. They shouldn't have. JJ wasted an opportunity and basically rehashed episode 4.
There's a whole argument there for all of us, and I don't think any of us would be against that. But
No, but you
Yeah,
understand
I
what I'm
mean
saying?
the point I was trying to make is what
Yeah.
Chris was looking for, and what he was when he was defending Last Jedi. All his points, which were valid points, and then and otherwise in a different setting, I think play into this movie. Like they I didn't realize it was the same screenwriter. I'm still shocked, but they took a chance in this movie. Yeah, it was Chris Terrio. They took those chances that you were championing for Last Jedi with this movie, and it worked for me. It worked well. It worked with I didn't ask my daughter which one she likes better, but Eric just came in and told you D- to an A-.
Okay, here I'm gonna give you the movies that she has in her screenwriting portfolio. Ready?
Go.
So Frozen 2, A Wrinkle in Time. Did you guys see that?
No.
Nope.
The one based on the book with Oprah Winfrey?
No, I heard it was
It
bad.
was okay.
Though. I didn't see it.
It wasn't bad. It was again pretty not boring. I don't want to say boring because we enjoyed it, but it wasn't exciting.
It was dry.
Different.
It was an alright movie, but it was dry.
There you go. Hey, Keith.
Oh, there you
Welcome.
go. Hey, Keith, how you doing? And yes, Keith, that's exactly the word I was looking for. Dry. Okay, Zootopia.
I like Zootopia.
Zootopia, one of their big hits in recent years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, I like
one.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph was great. And Disney Infinity Marvel Superheroes video game. I don't know what that.
Oh, you know what that is? So Disney had released a video game with these little figures like amiibos, but it was for the Disney version, and they had released it multi-platform, so you could buy it. There was a little we had that.
those little the characters you can buy and they appear on the screen,
and then you place them on these. You place them on this like a tray, and then the character pops up on the screen.
My boys had something like one of the first versions of that for like the Wii, which was like these little monsters you could buy. But man, talk about an expensive video game.
Oh, I have a ton of those Disney Infinity characters, a bunch of the Marvel ones and a bunch of the Star Wars ones. They're actually pretty cool. And then they discontinued the whole thing. I was like, well, what am I going to do with this now?
So as a writer, I think she's earned close to like $3 billion on the movies she's written for Disney. So they better keep paying her. All right. So Frozen 2. So that's a thumbs up from you, James, huh?
Yeah, thumbs up. Frozen 2, that is.
Mm-hmm. So now it's going to be Mike's gotta watch it. Let us know.
Yeah, I'm not watching it by myself. My kids are too old to watch that.
Yeah, I watched it with them, and the deal worked because of the next day I had her watching episodes 1 through 4 of The Last Dance with me. Which, since Keith is here, I didn't get a chance to get his take on 3 and 4. Circling back real quick, Keith.
Yeah, Keith, we had talked about episode 3 and 4 of The Last Dance.
Yeah, 3 and 4 was about. 3 was about. That was the Dennis Rodman one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Phil Jackson one.
Yo, I just feel like the more I'm seeing of this Last Dance documentary, the more I'm applauding the people that did it. The more like this is really going to be. It's going to be something. I think that there's going to be lots of awards behind that.
I think so.
I think there's going to be a lot of awards behind this. And that I really didn't expect to learn anything new, honestly. And I feel like
James was saying the same thing.
And I feel like that's the wildest part. I just feel like I'm learning so much stuff that I didn't, like so much background stuff that like I didn't even know that was needed to be known. So you're like, oh, that management's ass. Yo, I'm surprised that those guys played so hard for them. Like that management was ass. Like,
yeah, right. They you know what? They didn't do it for them. I don't think.
Of course not. They couldn't be. They couldn't. They did it for yo.
Nah.
Yo, everybody from from the owner on down was just like they were super blessed to have Jordan during that time because
Mm-hmm.
like he was the organizing figure. Like I'm watching some of these things and the motive Jordan was really misunderstood. I think like in at least how he was portrayed to us in the media, like he was literally like he was a player coach and he was a psychologist.
Well, I think Phil Jackson comes across as, though understated so far, his leadership style with Jordan. Okay,
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
killing a small cat?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's me. I'm watching Krypton.
I'm like screaming. No, his
I'll
laid
close
back
the basement
leadership
door.
style. What was I gonna say? Oh, Phil Jackson's laid back leadership style really played a huge role. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Jerry Krause one compliment, and that is the guy can see talent from a mile away. Him picking up moving Phil Jackson in to that position was his idea. Jordan was
Him trading
his pick.
Oakley for Cartwright. Also
Pippen.
his idea.
Yeah.
He can see now he may be looking too far ahead. No, but his eye for talent is great. Like I was surprised when they were talking about Phil Jackson and the young coach had come in and kind of got the Bills running and they almost made the playoffs. And then they fire the coach and they move Phil Jackson and I'm like, who makes that move? And Jordan was
No,
pissed.
hold on. He brought in Doug Collins first, and then hired
Right.
Phil Jackson as Doug Collins' assistant.
Right, but then Doug Collins was winning. They had gotten close to the playoffs, right? Or did they make the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, they were in
year?
the playoffs. They lost to the
Right.
Pistons.
Yeah, they got to
And
the Eastern Conference
88
Finals.
in '89.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got to the
Twice,
Eastern
right.
Conference Finals. You don't fire a coach like that. Like, but whatever.
Yeah.
But he had basically stuck Phil Jackson in a place to get to where he wanted him.
Gotcha.
And
Meanwhile, you heard Doug Collins was like, when I coached Michael, the 87, 88, he won back-to-back. I think he won one or two MVPs. He won All-Star MVP, Slam Dunk Contest, Defensive Player of the Year, scoring title both years, averaged like he's spewing out his resume, and then I got fired.
But I think it was interesting because he saw that, yes, Jordan was winning all this stuff, but that was all Jordan.
That was all Jordan. And then Phil brought with them Tex Winter, another undersung hero in this whole legacy of the franchise, and introduced the triangle offense. And
Triangle
Tex
pitch.
Winter is
Yeah.
he's like the Yoda of basketball, yo. Like Tex, I feel like he's like one of those mythic figures that nobody really knows a huge amount about other than his relationship to the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But I tell you this though, this doc also gave me a very good look into. I honestly used to think like the coach, Phil Jackson was just lucky. You know, he lucked into Kobe, he lucked into Jordan. Like I just felt like, oh, he's just lucking out on these like once in a lifetime ass players. But this really gave me an insight into him as a coach, and he's really a great understander of people, yo.
Oh yeah, the whole Rodman and with Jackson just told me that's exactly what
How he
is.
handled Rodman was masterful.
He connected with that dude immediately by looking at his necklace. Like, oh, you're from so and so tribe, Native American tribe. I've been there. You know what such and such mean? All of a sudden, Rodman's fixated with him. Like, whoa, what does that mean?
But wait though,
Oh, he who walks backwards. I'm like,
it makes it less surprising when you actually saw the window into Phil Jackson's past.
yeah, that's true.
Like, yo, like he literally is like he's been rebelling from his whole upbringing, his whole life.
And it's amazing to question the whole idea of, okay, why are you firing Phil Jackson now? And that's the whole central thesis of this whole thing.
I still don't get it.
Even the start of it is there's no backstabbing, and you're like, that's the starts every episode, and you're like,
again, a masterful editing job. We talked about how this whole thing has been edited thus far, Keith, like with the time jump and marry an overarching story, and then the techniques where he is having someone read or look on an iPad on a footage from someone else that just spoke to us on camera 10 seconds ago, and you get to see that person's reaction just like our reaction. And then stuff like that too. This editing, the music, the score that comes on, and the outro, and how he always interjects that line at Jerry Krause. There's no backstabbing here. It's like he's reinforcing that to you. It's in your head.
The guy who did this, the guy who actually was responsible for this and did like who actually produced this, he did the AI doc too,
Yeah,
which was
that's why Michael said,
which is the reason
wanted,
why.
yeah.
But if you see the AI doc, like it was compelling in the same kind of way. Like the editing, although simple as it looks, like how it was done and what was put where, like looks it made it so much more compelling.
Yeah, well, it sets up a nice villain for you to follow along
But
with.
then love.
Well, understand.
Understand. Yes, exactly. Love. Understand. Yes.
And like I said, I wouldn't have, after episode 1, I wouldn't have expected to, respect anything about Jerry Krause, but it's actually given me enough to see some stuff about him.
I think he was smart. I think he was still slimy, though.
Oh, yeah. Usually slimy guys are kind of smart, and they just...
He looked like the kind of dude, like, he didn't really get any babes, so, like...
You sound like Jordan.
You could tell.
All right, so you guys have anything else you want to praise about this documentary?
Well, I really think that everybody should see it, and it gives a great window into not even just, like, I'm going to say Jordan, but, like, because I think a lot of the conversation is lost sometimes when you speak to people who've never saw NBA basketball during that time. Like, yo, like that shit was really like WWF. We didn't think about it at the time because that's just how basketball was. We didn't think of it getting different or anything like that. But like, you have a conversation with a younger person about how basketball was, and it's like, oh, you're on some get off my lawn type stuff. Like, no, you didn't have no free passes to make your beautiful fancy moves down the lane. Like, dude, like you were going to get a chicken wing. Like it was. No, like nobody's watching.
And they showed that one play too, Horace Grant, and Michael was like, "Stop whining! Just don't let him get in your head." And then they showed the cut of Dinkins from the Pistons, like chicken winging.
Yeah, dude, like you get a legit clothesline, like, and it may be just a foul if they catch it.
And then Ron Artest goes and has that fight in the crowd, and it ruins the whole thing.
It had already started before that. The softening had already started before that, but like that, I don't think that ruined it.
Well, that was the public outcry. I think was when they started going into the stands. It went from, hey, they're playing hard on the court and whatnot to and again, that's just a media thing. Seeing what's going on behind the scene versus what you saw on TV is very different.
I think it hit a critical mass before that with like the Heat and Knicks and all that fiasco with the on-court fightings and Jeff Van Gundy. I think that season was when David Stern was like, all right, that's enough.
Right. Well, and these guys, the Pistons,
but that wasn't the reason why
the
in-game defense and things like that was softened. That wasn't the reason for that. The reason for that was because like the figuring is that fans, like people wanted to see more scoring. They want to see more and higher scoring. Like that's so really like the game leans way more towards offense now than it ever has. Like you can barely breathe on a guy. Some of these stuff that they call fouls, like Harden. A third of Harden's points is off of forced fouls.
You forget the 80s with Showtime Lakers and the Celtics. They were still having high score points and still playing relatively tough defense. It's when the Bulls and Heat made it like 60-62 bloodbaths. That's when the fans were like, okay, this was boring.
Exactly. When the defensive teams were really running the league, that's when stuff started to switch.
With no offense.
Because people want to see offense. So now all of a sudden, okay, no hand checking. Like, come on, for real, you can't even really put your hands out and touch it. Like, it's I don't like it.
The worst for me is like the Steph Curry, I'm gonna jump chest into you and shoot in the air and take my foul. It really bugs
Steph Curry. James Harden to me is the worst. Like a little legit a of his points in any game is coming from forced fouls. Like yo, like I'm sitting here as a viewer, like I'm watching this, like you as a as an official, you have to see that he faked that. Like, come on, like that's not fair. That's not a foul. If anything, it should be a foul on him.
Yeah, and it's not. It has nothing to do, I think, with the players softening. I think the players are
Oh
just
no, yeah,
pushing the new scoring
of course.
rules
This is the game that they're
to their
playing, and
advantage.
this is the rules that they
Yeah.
have. I'm not. I hate how Mayweather. I hate Mayweather's style of boxing. But can I deny that it isn't effective? It's effective. He plays. He found a rule, and he
Right.
plays within that rule. He became a he perfected that particular part of not getting punched.
Right. I think all of us would love to perfect not getting punched.
But as a
I think
viewer,
that's
you're
a
watching the
great...
boxing matches. You're watching for the punches.
Right. That's
That damn rule fucks
Right.
with your entertainment value.
well. If you're watching for punches now, you go over to MMA.
True story, I guess.
All right. We have one last small topic here, and that was James and Mike wanted to talk about the first couple of episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Love it.
Hello.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
That's my
Season's almost
recap.
over, but it is the final.
Oh,
It is the final
Alright.
season. There's like 2
Yes.
episodes left.
This season has been better than the Star Wars trilogy that came out recently.
Yes, I agree 100%.
That last saber fight, Chris,
Oh.
you need to just watch that episode. Was
Mhm.
better. It was like seeing the Darth Maul Phantom Menace fight all over again.
Yeah, even if you
oh,
don't want
so
to watch
it's
the whole
empty,
season.
empty and cool.
It's what?
It's empty and
No,
cool.
no. This one actually has no. Okay, like not 100% similar.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding on you.
It's got a backstory that they built. Unfortunately, you have to watch all of the previous episodes somewhat. But if you just want to watch the fight scene without understanding why they're fighting, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I thought so far.
I just realized
Right.
that Darth Maul is a Star Wars Agent Coulson.
Yeah, spoiler alert. He's in that fight scene that I'm talking to you about, with his legs reattached to his upper body.
Yeah, I mean, but we see him in Rebels, right? So we know he's there.
Yeah,
He's
that's
around,
that
so-
came out.
Yeah.
Right. I was just like, wait, they both died and they both came back better in their TV show.
Yeah.
So-
And Mike,
exactly.
you're realizing this is happening parallel to the opening of Revenge of the Sith, right?
Right, that's what I didn't realize at first until they started mentioning things that were happening in episode 3, and I was like, oh wait, they're beyond that episode 2-3 gap now.
Yeah, they're
So-
into the beginning of a good function of Revenge of the
Yeah.
Sith.
Yeah.
So I wonder how the finale is going to be. Execute
Yeah,
Order
and like I
66?
had mentioned the other day, like this is gonna tie Ahsoka's appearance into the Mandalorian nicely
Yeah,
when she shows up for
Oh, that's
season 2.
interesting.
Yeah.
That makes me somewhat
you
interested.
should start
Oh.
watching, Chris.
I know.
There are a couple episodes that I didn't like much. Like Mike, you might be into like the X clones. Like my son knows all of them, Rex and this, that, and the third. I'm like, these like tertiary characters I don't care about.
Yeah. No, I did. I liked it. I liked that squad, but it wasn't a big thing for me, right?
Yeah, they kept extending that story. I'm like, all right, enough already. I get it. They're the rejects, but they're like the special forces. All right, another story of these guys. Like, let's move on.
So
Get back to
here's
the
my theory,
Jedi
though.
and Anakin.
But my theory is these guys might show up in Mandalorian as well, maybe with Ahsoka.
Oh, they have to be much older. I don't know how fast the clones
Yeah.
age, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think who showed up in was it Rex or Cody showed up in
Well, don't
in
go
Rebels,
too
right?
far into spoilers.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
I'm
one of
talking
them.
about
One of them rebels. Yes.
Yeah.
One of them made it to rebels. Very old, gray hair.
So, But now we're talking about past episode 6, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
Rebels was Rebels was right before New Hope.
4. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like what, a 20-year gap between 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So you add 20 years to their character now, then you add another 5 years to get to Return of the Jedi, and then another 5 years to get to Mandalorian. I mean, it'd be like Grandpa Rex and Cody, great grandpa.
hmm
All right, I'm gonna have to check out a couple episodes. I can't say I'm gonna sit down and watch the whole series. I didn't really get attached to any of the other series. I wasn't a huge fan of the animation style, which is fine. Has nothing to do with good or not.
Right.
It just wasn't attracting me. But and I didn't feel like I needed it the story wise.
I don't think so. I don't think. Yeah, I tried going back to watching season 6 just to catch up, and then after like the second episode, my son was like, "You already know the story, Dad. Let's just go to season 7." And I went straight to season 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there were some characters
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I still enjoyed the 7th season.
Okay. All right. Cool.
You might want to go back to get some more Jedi lore though, like Palpatine, Yoda. The whole idea of like the balance of the Force, that you'll have to,
Right.
yeah, you're not gonna get it unless you go back and watch something. But they're not talking about it this season. This is just the final season to conclude the story.
Okay. Why isn't this like a video game?
There is a
They
Clone
keep
Wars
making video games of.
It's not very good though.
Well, they keep making good video games out of like random dudes with force powers instead of.
Because the demand's out there, someone's gonna buy it.
Oh, speaking of, I bought Fallen Order today. I'm gonna try that out tonight.
You said Law and Order?
No, Fallen Order.
Oh,
No, not Law and Order, the
Dun,
video
dun,
game.
I think the only coming up, we're going to continue to watch Last Dance. I don't think we have any specific stuff on our slate. We have May the 4th coming up next week. Trying to figure out what we should watch or talk about. Any suggestions, guys?
Justice League.
dude, he said May the 4th. He got Justice League. The only thing worse than the last trilogy.
See, I don't want to argue about the last trilogy.
Let's just do a rewatchable of A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. I can fit those in whenever I feel like it.
Yeah, it works for me because every time I watch it, I always have new questions.
And Keith, being the guy who doesn't watch Star Wars, can join since he never watched the Star Wars really.
Oh, can we get a Keith how he feels about Star Wars having?
Sure.
There you go.
All right, that sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do a rewatch of the originals,
All right.
and we'll layer some love out. I'm gonna look for that Lucasfilm ILM documentary. Maybe I'll find something cool about that I can bring. Be fun. All right, guys. I think that's gonna be it for tonight. Nice, quick, fun podcast.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for hosting as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining me. I always have a good time.
Everyone.
And I got to get to editing before Brooks.
She asked earlier today. Yes.
I had a particularly bad day as I managed to break a drill bit and 2 screws. How do you break 2 screws? I don't know. But yeah.
Did you fix your mom's PC?
I did not. I was up till let's hear. So I spent about 12 hours trying to remove the virus from her PC, but it seems to be rewriting the preference files for her browser, and I can't find where it's doing it. So I switched her over to Firefox temporarily until I can figure that out. So I've had nothing but bad luck the last 2 days when trying to fix things. So that's just me. That's what I'm doing, and stuck at home. Trying to get my kids to do homework and trying to not break stuff in my house. Oh, I had to order a new dryer because my dryer broke too. My roof's leaking. Yeah. Stuff's not going well this week.
Good
Our roof's
Lord.
leaking. Got another dryer, virus on PCs, breaking
Right.
tools.
Oh God. All right, guys.
We'll send you a rabbit's
Thanks for
foot.
joining.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I need some luck. You guys got like a horseshoe,
Lord.
There you go.
something, 4-leaf clover. I'll take it. All right, wish me luck, guys. You guys have a
All
good
right,
night.
man. Take care.
Have a good one, guys.
Later.
All right.